So I did this talk. First of all, thank y'all for having me again. I think this stuff is super interesting. I'm crazy passionate about it. I practice it myself, on my son, meaning essentially functional neurology is a term that we use often, meaning we all, again, talking my intro, we know that the nervous system has a certain requirements. Nervous system being the spinal cord, the nerve itself, the brain. Um, the more we've learned how the brain works since the 80s, especially in imaging and different brain scans, we can actually kind of understand the language of the brain a lot better now. And I am blessed to be a chiropractic neurologist, meaning I'm a holistic practitioner. I take the whole body into account. If I'm going to rehab someone, if I want to enhance someone's function, I take chemistry into account. I take nutrition, I take thoughts, I take breath, I take the body's function all together. So this is going to be a talk about brain and body, a little more in detail than we normally think about it, because I think, again, most of us know if I exercise my body, it's good for me. If I go walk, if I go exercise, if I do push-ups, these things are good for me. But I'm going to get a little more in the details on how it actually enhances our brain and how we can intentionally do physical things to our body and with our body so that I can get specific enhancements of brain function. Again, my name is Dr. Ross Solis. I am a board-certified chiropractic neurologist. Currently, I'm the only board-certified one in Oklahoma. There was another guy in Coweta, Oklahoma, Dr. Curtis Tillman. He's doing research in Europe right now for vestibular rehabilitation. There's a couple other doctors that I would love to talk to you about. I know around the area that are highly trained in clinical neuroscience and how we can use it for physical rehab, and I can give you their names. But currently, if you want to find a board-certified chiropractic neurologist, I'm it. I hope we have more coming to the state. You can always go to acnb.org and look up doctor location. I mean, do we have other people from out of state? I've heard that's a possibility. I don't know. So if you ever want a chiropractic neurologist or someone that is a chiropractor that thinks like-minded, because we call the chiro patients in our clinic where I treat back pain, neck pain, peripheral neuropathy, joint pains. And then I have my neuro patients, but because of my training, I do have in the clinic. It's a separate way of treating the patient, but I can't not give you clinical neurological applications to your back pain or neck pain or arm pain. So, but if you want one in your hometown, in your state, and you want to go through the rehab process that we're trained to do, you can go to www.acnb.org and look up the doctor locator. So quickly, this definition of chiropractic neurology is from the Chiropractic Neurology Board. We use the patient's bodies and environment to assess, diagnose, and localize areas of dysfunction. The human body systems are constantly affecting the neurological system, and we are constantly being affected by the neurological system. So we use functional and holistic approaches to target interventions specific to the location of dysfunction. Simply put, how I tell my patients is a lot of the research and what we know and how I can intentionally aim stimulation is through stroke rehab. Before the 80s, we thought if you injure your brain, you're stuck. That's how you are. You can't change it. But we've learned from strokes that because it's such a localized injury, I can do a scan and say, okay, move your finger, and I can see blood flow go to the areas or cells that move that finger. I can say, think about something. We can see the brain regions light up and activate that think about that thought. And we can do that for a lot of the bodily functions. So that's what I do. We can aim stimulation. Pharmacological intervention is fantastic. Functional medicine intervention is fantastic. I'm a big supporter of it all. The only difference is they can't aim it very well. We can aim towards a receptor. I can aim, if I want someone to have more serotonin function, I can do 5-HTP, tryptophan, different things that will lead to better serotonin function. But if I want to aim towards a hemisphere that we know has more serotonergic receptors, we can do that by doing one-sided stimulation of the body. If I want more dopamine stimulation, we can aim that by essentially sending blood flow to the region using certain physical activities, whether it's eye movement, head movement, and I'm going to elaborate on that too. So as a chiropractic neurologist, we use the musculoskeletal system. That's what chiropractors are experts at. We know the spine. Most of us hear about cracking necks, cracking backs. We do that. That's in our world, we use the adjustment as a stimulation. I don't personally claim, as other chiropractors, including my wife, to do this whole putting bones back into place. I just don't use that terminology the same way. I use the adjustment to wake up the cerebellum, wake up the brainstem, wake up the frontal lobe, send blood flow to the spinal cord, and decompress joints. That's my simple thought process, but a little more complicated when you get into the nitty gritty. So that's what we do. We use the body, we use the adjustment to stimulate the brain and the nervous system. And we use other different sensory-based modalities to do that, and the rest that we're going to elaborate on. So again, kind of getting into it, I'm a rehabilitation specialist. So if you come to me or you come to a chiropractic neurologist for treatment, it's essentially rehab. To be honest, I've had some of these conversations. The way it was, a lot of it was designed was intensives. If you want to train a brain, you have to teach it a new language. Even though the brain can change, it's just difficult. It's a different type of cell. It's a different type of tissue. So it takes repetition. It takes a certain formula of changing the brain. So I'm actually trained to do this. The first 3 years of my career were intensive. I saw specifically the first 1 or 2 years special operations. So anyone within the SEAL team community, Green Berets, MARSOC, Air Force, CIA, we call the Jason Bourne guys. I was fortunate to work with them, breathe with them, teach them how to use their physical body to enhance themselves on a daily basis. Because these guys, most of them were trained to go professionally kill people while be calm. But they can't go to Walmart and get groceries and fulfill the list that their spouse gave them. So we teach them how to be functional in their nervous system. So I'm a rehab specialist. So how we do it with these guys and gals is we not in my private practice. I have done 2 different intensives, but it's 3 hours a day for 5 to 10 days. Because again, most of the times people come see me, they know they've had this condition, they have spent years, and if we speak any language for years, we become fluent at it. So we have to unlearn it. It's not easy. It takes repetition, and to physically change the brain, it's quick to see the changes, but it takes a lot of repetition. So you don't need the intensives, but just so you know, it is an option that we do support and recommend. But you can also make the intensive part of your day. In my own life, I intensively rehab myself all day, every day with breath. It's just what I do. I have different techniques and ways that I can drop heart rate, drop blood pressure, regulate heart rate, regulate blood pressure, breathe myself to sleep. Whatever I need to enhance my brain function for that day, I will do. Y'all ain't even going to tell me I'm choking to death up here. Slowly. And no one even said, hey, you okay? I'm going to take this off for now. Is that okay? Jeez Louise. It's like, why am I breathing? I'm talking about breathing. It gets more difficult. Now I know why. Okay. So neurological rehabilitation improves function, reduces symptoms, and improves overall well-being of the patient. Obviously, we're here for some special kids and people. So I'm obviously dear to my heart because I've got to work with a lot of them. But it helps function disorders, headaches, seizure disorders, dizziness, neuralgia. I got to be honest, seizures are a tricky one because that's a common question I get. It depends what type, how long you've had it, what triggers it, you name it. But there are ways that we can activate brain function to at least give your body a fighting chance to be, it sounds weird to say this, to be better at having seizures rather than being bad at having seizures. And I know that's a weird way to phrase that, but it's about being efficient at having disorders because sometimes we don't have a choice. Structural and neuromuscular disorders, of course, we can do degenerative issues. I've worked with a lot of dementia, stroke patients, Parkinson's, you name it, I've seen it. Traumatic brain injuries, infections, so essentially, and also vascular disorders, so immunological issues. I have a lot of autoimmune patients who, after being on fire for so long, the brain has made physical connections that now physically change their body. So even though I'm not necessarily directly treating the immunological issue or the autoimmune disease, I can help and we can train the body to at least reconnect and disconnect certain things that, it's learned. So neuroplasticity, who's heard of it with a raise of hands? It's kind of important. It's essentially what I'm talking about. I think what a lot of us are talking about. You can actually learn and unlearn things in the brain. So if you can see the TV at all, the right picture is a really basic way of kind of describing. You have strong pathways and you have weak pathways. Sometimes we want to make the stronger ones weaker. We want to make the weaker ones stronger. Who's heard of brain balance centers? Brain Balance Centers, I actually did some internship there. I love the concept. Dr. Robert Malillo, the owner and founder, pioneer, is a functional neurologist, chiropractic neurologist, also PhD, all these other things. I've got to study with him. I know his books. I guess my point is I love the concept. It's not for everybody, just like I'm not for everybody, just like everything's not for everybody. But the concept itself, the idea of taking imbalances and strengthness and pathways of the brain and making them weaker or stronger, it's a beautiful concept, and we do use it. You do use it. It's all based off neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neuronal connections throughout life, and then also unlearning connections it doesn't talk about. So It also allows the neurons, the nerve cells itself, to compensate for injury and disease, to adjust to their activities. So really, when I'm talking about this, I do speak to the cells a lot, meaning like I can talk. I told this someone earlier. I really do in my rehab. There's a concept of saying you, and then there's you. So I'm Ross, the soul and the spirit, but my brain has been making decisions for me long before Ross. This is my son Paxton, by the way. This is his first time to see me do a presentation, so I'm okay with this. So with neuroplasticity, you do want to enhance it. So if I'm going to come, if anyone wants to talk to me about rehabbing, we have to make sure you can rehab. So these are obvious things, but not obviously things to fix. So get good sleep, keep learning, do new things. So if you want to rehab with me, I'm going to make you do new things, and you're going to do things you don't want to do, because the best way to grow the brain, do something you don't want to do. When I say grow the brain, grow a new connection, because that's sometimes what we want to do. Keep moving, that's a physical activity. Decrease stress, easier said than done. Have a focus and a purpose, that helps. So one of the things I do in my rehab is I find something you love. What does your child like to do? What do they still find pleasure in things? What do they enjoy? And then we rehab around that. Good foods, good thoughts. If you really want to hear my passion, we talk about thoughts a lot. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I have a patient right now. She no longer uses the word I can't, because it's not conducive to our therapy. I don't belittle the idea. We use a different word. That's it. It's challenging. Instead of I can't do this, this is challenging for me. Okay, same thing, same outcomes, just different words. So, and then also good action. So, going into emotions and just being good spirited. There's different principles to being able to drive neuroplasticity. I highlighted 3 of these because this, I think, matters to this group and a lot of people. Age does matter. You can teach an old dog new trick. Those old dogs become stubborn and a little more angry and stuff, but whatever. The kids, same thing, just a little more plastic. They can change a little more easier. So I love working with kids. I love meeting parents and at least tell them, hey, these things exist, because they're still young enough we can keep on learning. Honestly, until the age of 25, we're pretty moldable. We're pretty plastic, even afterwards, but from 7 to 25, we can teach some stuff. Transference, it's a good concept in what we do. It's the practice, or if you practice something in a nearby area of the brain, it will transfer to other areas of the brain. This is really deep into what we do. I can have a little kid or an adult look at my fingers and look in certain direction with their eyes only quickly, or pursue a finger, or hey, don't look at the moving hand. Most of y'all probably looked at the moving hand. You want to look, if I tell you that rule, that brain region has that specific function of go, no go, we call it, but it's right next to speech. So we can use eye function to enhance speech. And if you ever heard of Norman Doidge, you ever heard of that neurologist? Norman Doidge, he has a great book. He's an MD neurologist, the brain that changes itself, something along those lines. They can get people to improve their balance by stimulating the tongue. They've gotten a blind person to see with their tongue. The point is if you know how we're wired and we connect, I can stimulate certain cells that will nudge another cell and say, hey, let's work together. And sure enough, speech gets better by moving eyes, or balance gets better by moving eyes, thoughts gets better by moving eyes or breath. So that's transference, essentially using a group of cells to stimulate other cells. And then repetition, that's a big one. If you want to come to my practice, I give at least 2 options. I can repeat for you, or you can go repeat at home. They both have to happen. How you do it, just make sure it happens. So if you're going to benefit from breathing, keep breathing a specific way. If you're going to benefit from moving your eyes in a certain direction, we send you home and you repeat that stimulation so that your brain can learn that language. How do we exercise the brain? These are essentially reviewing the senses: taste, smell, sight, touch, and movement, which is the big chiropractic and physical therapist in me loves. Hearing, so we do use a lot of metronome. Are you familiar with metronome therapy for brain rehab? It's a big teaching the brain timing. If I need to learn how to walk, if I need to learn how to focus in a class, we can slow down the pace of the brain with a metronome and teach the body how to move at that pace. And next thing you know, you now have a language of, hey, if I can slow down, I can slow down my body, I can slow down my mind, simply put. And then vestibular system, I highlighted that one down right of this picture. It is the oldest and most foundational type of receptor. It for life and is the strongest activator of the brain. Every single one of us right now have stress. It's not all bad stress. The fact that we are sitting up against gravity, I don't see anyone laying down yet, means we're stressing right now. We are using the oldest group of cells because we are the only organism that stands upright constantly throughout most of our functional life. So the first group of cells to develop, phylogenetically, the fancy word, are the vestibular cells. So if I want to do a stimulation that will have broad stimulation to the whole brain, I use that system. What is that system? Spinning, jumping, moving forward and back, turning the head, moving the eyes. By the way, our kids love these things. They do it without us even telling them. If you have a special needs kid or whatever, or normal kid, you will see them spinning. You will see them doing cartwheels. And if they're not, promote it and condone it. And honestly, some of the adults do the same things. I will forever be a kid when it comes to that stuff. I walk on lines at the store because why not? I enhance my vestibulospinal system. I will spin in a chair. I will do cartwheels. And I'm going to try to maintain that as long as I can because it is the oldest, most influential system in our brain. So let's use it to exercise the brain. The eyes, the windows into the brain. So you've heard that saying. It is a real truth. Eye movements play a key role in understanding cognition, behavior, and disorders of the brain. There's a lot of good literature and research out there on Parkinsonian individuals, dementia patients, and the speed of eye movements. So I can look at, or we can measure it through a VNGs, video nystagmography. Anyone ever? There's a lot of ways you can measure the speed of an eye movement. There's different other tools. So we know that certain levels of cognitive decline or even fatigue will slow down an eye movement, or also slow the ability for it to reflexively move to a stimulation. So you can actually measure eye function to see brain function. Do y'all know that the eyes are the brain, by the way? Have y'all heard of that? Like physically, it's the same brain tissue. As we develop, we're I don't know, like a cylinder, and then two little buds come out of that cylinder, and those buds move forward and out into the eye sockets. So, the eyes are brain tissue. So let's use them to exercise and enhance our brain. And again, some of this is just optimization. For me, in my life, it's optimization now. It used to be treatment for me. But so it can be a lifelong thing. Evaluate brainstem. It helps evaluate the function of the brainstem, the cerebellum, the thalamus, basal ganglia, the cortex, different brain regions. So again, I can do a saccade, which is a quick movement. I can do a reflexive eye movement. And based on that function, I say, okay, cool, the frontal lobes look pretty good. The cerebellum sucks. Or the reflex looks good, but this volitional movement sucks. Kind of makes sense? Maybe not the best word, but you know what I'm saying. I'm passionate about this stuff and truthful. The visual system, the same thing. We do a lot of color therapy if we need to. Target spatial awareness exercises. Again, don't look at this target, look at that target, or move that direction to those color targets. A function of the eyes that's very underestimated and underappreciated is the ability to keep the eyes still. That's why some of you have kids that have these issues. One of the first things we ask is, how well do they make eye contact? So far, all of your brain's looking pretty darn good because your eye contact is solid. Not that it has to be, but one of the things we measure is how well can you look at this dot? Okay, how well can you look at that dot and move your head? Okay, and then we just build on that. So gaze stability, saccades, quick eye movements, pursuits, which is tracking, OPKs, optokinetic nystagmus, which is the reflexive movement, and then the vestibular systems on the eye. So I will spin a kid, and when you spin a kid after about 10 to 14 seconds, when I stop them, they should have nystagmus. I have an autistic kid. I'm not sure if he's here. I love him, Connor. I can say his name. When I first met him, I spun the crap out of him, and he just said, "What did we do?" Nothing happened. I can spin him today and look at his eyes, and they will reflexively move, which is a brain function. We want that. So it's a weird measurement of objective and measurement improvement, but it's something we need. We want it. It wasn't there. Now it is there. So it's kind of how it transfers into his function. That's a whole nother, deep conversation. The vestibular system we talked about, it's just a visual. It does affect the eyes. It affects the cortex. Essentially, if you're going to send blood flow anywhere in your body, your fingers, your hands, your brain, your eyes, the vestibular system helps with that. It helps shunts blood to where it needs to be with movement. Movement of my body in space, the eye movements, posture. As a chiropractor, I really harness this. As a chiropractor, my biggest challenge to other chiropractors is, if we're going to adjust the spine, what do you do for the vestibular system? Because we always talk about curvature and straight necks and scoliosis. Well, that only happens because the vestibular spinal system did something wrong or, inefficient. So I love to exercise as a chiropractor. This is a great visual too. This is essentially how I communicate while why moving your head left and right or doing spins can actually affect your emotions and thoughts. You know this already because if I spun the crap out of you, how many of you are going to get anxious? Be honest. Some of y'all? There's nothing in the vestibular system directly that deals with anxiousness, but it's down the line pathways, has everything to do with anxiousness. That's what this picture shows. If you want to see any of this, I think I can share it, or I can also just tell you to go Google vestibular system and brain, and this will be one of the pictures. Essentially, you can send blood flow or activate the receptors of the inner ear. It will send information through the vestibular cochlear nerve into the computer system, which is the brainstem, which has direct autonomic control. Which is why I can spin someone or I don't do this, but you can spin someone in a carnival ride and they'll throw up, because essentially the computer system went, oh crap, throw up. It's two separate cells, very close to each other. That's that transference function where I can activate a cell to wake up another cell, both good ways and bad ways. But the big thing is, if you go even further down the line, my key sentence here in the bottom right, I highlight anything that disrupts the stress axis, emotional, trauma, environmental toxicity, which is a big topic I know here, chronic infections, lack of sleep, etc., can also disrupt vestibular function and vice versa. If I have a dizzy patient, I have to take all this into account, that they think different, that their immune system is different, all this. If you come in with PANS or PANDAS or anything with an immunological inflammation, autoimmune disease, I'm going to take your vestibular system into account because it could easily be affected. Essentially, it's connected to everything. So when one thing goes down, they all kind of talk to each other. Everyone's still following so far? Cranial nerve stimulation. Cranial nerves are all the nerves that come directly off the brainstem. A very important area of the brain, controls life, and it connects every function of the face. Blinking, eyes, tongue, face sensation, face movement, the sensation on the tongue, inner ears, you name it, everything that comes off the face. So if I want to stimulate the brain directly, I use a cranial nerve. I use electrical stimulation. There's different ways to do that. So that's the trigeminal nucleus. So people have TMJ issues. We will stimulate the cranial nerve on the right next to the TMJ, which is all about facial pain and facial stimulation. It controls the whole sensation of the face. It also aspects of the tongue. I will use the tongue. I stimulate most all of my neuro patients' tongue. Sounds weird, by the way. 9-volt battery is not the same. I get asked that all the time. Why not? I did it. I did all right, but took some work. So I'm just saying it's not the same as the therapy we do. We do recommend vibrating the tongue with a toothbrush, though. So I mean, there's different ways to get stimulation to these nerves. We use a specific, it's called the mini stem device. We also used to do essentially it's a needle EMG machine that would stimulate specific nerves. So a nerve frequency more than just muscles. And then my favorite nerve is the vagus nerve or the vagal nerve. Who's heard of that one? Dude, go learn it, go love it, use it for your family, your child, anything you can find that stimulates that nerve, do it all the time. It is the connector to the brain, to the body, and every single organ, including your pancreas. It's glucose regulation. So much talking about gut today, I'm sure, right? The gut function, the controlling gut barriers, brain barriers. The vagal nerve is the bee's knees. It is easy to stimulate yourself with humming, gargling, laughter, singing, breathing, cold water on the face, abdominal massage, probiotics. You name it, man. That nerve we can exercise, and when it gets less exercise, you can have very specific symptoms that I see quite a bit, and you probably all are familiar with. Intentional breathing is probably my favorite vagal nerve exercise, and also favorite brain exercise, and just life exercise. This picture is just to show you that essentially these are the cells that activate whenever you intentionally breathe. So if I want to exercise cells in the brain, this is what functional neurology is, right? I just use the function that functions and uses these cells. So the act of me just listening to my breath and doing it for 3-4 seconds and then exhaling twice as long by feeling it and healing it, that is a brain exercise. It is a brain stimulation. It can literally grow brain tissue and shrink other brain areas. That's what it does. Who's heard of the amygdala? The amygdala will shrink after 8 weeks, 24 to 45 minutes a day of mindfulness meditation. It will shrink. It gets smaller. It gets less loud, less efficient. They've done all these studies in military and PTSD. It will grow the frontal lobe cortex, which is all about emotional regulation, thought, cognition, focus, attention. I'm listening to a podcast about it right now. So the act of intentional breathing, the easiest, hardest thing you can do. I dare any who meditates, honestly. A lot of people, no? Okay, cool. Tons of hands now. But I'm talking about 20, 30 minutes sitting down, closing your eyes, listening to your breath, and that's it. It's difficult. The easiest, hardest thing you can do with the most influential impact on your brain. So if I get one thing in your brain today, learn mindfulness, intentional breathing, or meditation. It does affect all these areas: the frontal lobes, the limbic system, the hypothalamus, the brainstem, the cerebellum, insula. Every single one of those words have a vital function on our brain. So just listening to your breath does that. This is a cool brain scan showing the cycle of meditation. A lot of people hear meditation is, I suck at meditation. What's your first mistake? Is you judge yourself. Your second mistake is people think you're supposed to meditate and think of nothing. That's not it. Meditation is this cycle. You're supposed to find a focus. And by the way, this is just spitballing explanation. Find a focus. Breathing's kind of important, so we do that one across the board, and then see how long you can stay on it. And guess what's going to happen? Something's going to knock on your mental door. Is someone calling me? Did I set my timer? That's me. I've done this for 10 years. I will close my eyes and meditate for 10 minutes, and my brain till this day says, did you set the timer? God forbid I go longer than I set the timer, but my goal is don't open the eyes and look at the timer, because I always set it. But my brain will do this. But what I know the cycle says, okay, cool, I'll just go right back to my foundational focus. So that's what this picture is, if y'all can see it. It's a cycle. So I will have my patients meditate in the room with me with physical activity and different functions, because why not regulate the autonomics? Why not regulate emotions? Why not improve focus and attention while we rehab other functions of the body? So efficient movement does equal efficient function. Just a way to say the better we move our body is the better way to measure brain function. We can see this in Parkinson's patients and their balance disorders. The more messed up oh man, I gotta be careful with cussing, y'all. I've been warned. The more messed up the brain is, the more inefficient it becomes in terms of functions like balance and movement and coordination, touching your nose without your eyes being open. So we do check primitive reflexes. If you've ever heard of those, look into them. It's a good function to assess. We all have them normally until the year of 1, but after that they should be inhibited because the frontal lobes do that and they're more functional. But the less functional they become, well, you have primitive reflexes even though you're 30 after a brain injury. So we like to check primitive reflexes like palmar reflex, rooting reflex, different movement reflexes. Midline exercises are the way to go when in doubt. Planks, bridges, yoga, chin-ups, martial arts. There's something called cosmic yoga. It's kind of fun on the YouTube. It literally is like a little fun lady in weird outfits, fun outfits, sorry, doing some cool yoga moves, which is all brain exercise. So when in doubt, exercise your core. This is for, again, optimization or rehab. Hemispheric coordination, that's back to the brain balance concept. We do a lot of cross-crawl movements, dying bugs, chair marches, essentially making the brain use both sides of the hemisphere at the same time. And if I want to stimulate one side of the brain because of a tradition we hear about the OCD brain, the hyperactive brain, the gas pedal is the left hemisphere. So if I want to activate the brake pedal, we do left-sided body movements, that kind of concept. Not always that easy, but that's the concept. And then go, no-go is that's this thing. Don't look at the moving hand. Be honest. Who looked at the moving hand, please? We got 3, right? It's just, I didn't warn you though, so that's kind of harsh just for me to throw it at you like that. But normally it's like, okay, go, look at the moving hand. Okay, go. Okay, no go, and then I'll move this. You're supposed to change focus real quick. That's a brain function. So we do a lot of go, no go. Red light, yellow light, green light, a great game for kids, even adults. My most focus though is on the yellow light. I'd rather a kid that's a gas pedal be better at slowing down than stopping. We're not made to stop. We would like for them to stop, but it's better to slow sometimes, okay? The neuromuscular system in the brain, real quick diagram. This is just essentially use this body, stimulate, get adjusted. If you don't like get adjusted, go get a massage, do physical therapy. Just move your spine, foam roll, do yoga. The effects of the spinal cord and the nervous system and the musculoskeletal system on our development and function is huge. So physical therapy, cranial therapy, I love it. I recommend it as much as possible. Do it. So here's some of the tools that I use. So balance and coordination we use for almost all neuro patients, even my musculoskeletal chiro patients. The AREX pad, AIREX, they have great pads. They have balance beams. I have a balance beam. I have a square pad. It's just I call it like it's kind of like standing on water. It's just a foam pad that's really good for assessing and throwing off your balance, especially if you close your eyes. So I use that quite a bit. The rebounder trampoline, you don't have to use a small one. When in doubt, put your kid on the trampoline. By the way, most of y'all's kids already love that. I'm telling you, the kids' brains, I know a lot about the brain. I don't know crap about the brain though. The brain does this stuff already. So whenever we're trying to slow down the kid from doing spins and jumping, That's what it wants. It feeds it. What our job, I think, at least in my profession, is to regulate it. Be efficient and jump. Be efficient and run. If you're going to yell, yell quietly if that's an option. You make sense? So it's, I'm all about movement. The Bosu ball, I love the Bosu ball. My little Connor, I think he is here now. Hi, Connor. We love using the Bosu ball. We exercise his core on it. I can play catch with Connor now, which is crazy, and I love it. I throw him balls while he stands on a Bosu ball. Y'all know what a Bosu ball is? Have y'all stood on it? It's kind of challenging. He loves it. He jumps right on it, and he doesn't argue. By the way, when kids want to do rehab, make it fun, obviously, but not so obvious. So I listen to Connor most of the time, and he tells me what to do, and we have a lot of fun, but he gets the work done. Mirror therapy, if you're familiar with that, mirror therapy is fantastic. We actually have something called mirror neurons in the frontal lobes that allows me to look at another human or another animal. If they do something, I don't have to practice it. I can just do it because my brain is literally programmed to mirror things. And so we can mirror positive things, but we can also mirror negative things. So just, that's something we should be aware of, is mirrors and mirror neurons and mirror therapies. And of course, core and yoga balls, we use this quite a bit. And then low-level light therapy. I've been using that quite a bit more. Who's familiar with that? Light therapy, laser therapy. Yeah, I talked to you earlier, right? Fantastic concept. We should all use it. Again, if you look in the deep medical neurology and neuroscience, they're putting lights in noses because it's the most direct and closest way to get to the brain. So they will do intranasal light therapy. They will do intracranial light therapy and laser therapy to wake up neurons for Parkinson's disease and you name it. Light therapy is really good stuff and a lot of foundational research behind it. I have specific settings in the laser I use for brain and digestion and joints and muscles and circulation, and there's so much more on it. Essentially, it's my way to help the brain do its job more effectively. So if I want to activate more cellular function in the joint or a muscle of a brain, I'll put some laser on it too for a certain amount of time, and why not give the cells some more help and more knowledge and more oxygen and more blood flow and more stimulation? And we do this while we train the brain. So we provide a better environment to learn and create neuroplasticity. And then that's it. Thank you. Share gratitude, share compassion, please, especially if you have a patient as a kid or a kid as a patient. That's the only thing we can try to do. Easier said than done. But that vibration, that frequency, that brain function of compassion and gratitude is a real function. And if we exercise it, we can actually improve our function too. And so in a lot of my rehab, ask the parents, I treat them just as much as the kids sometimes, because if I want the kid to do better, I need the parent to do better. So they will breathe with us. They will do the exercise with us. So there's my contact information if you want it. I think it's also on the handout. Again, my name is Dr. Ross. Thank you very much. And I think I have time for questions. I went 32 minutes, but I'll also be in my little cabana area too. So, all right, I got time. So, we good? Any questions right now? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, I love it. Yeah. Patenka, it sounds really familiar. I don't know the difference. I've heard of it. I don't know as much as Wim Hof's concepts, but which one? Just find an in between. Do both. I do controlled hyperventilation. I do most in my world. I'm trying to promote healing. We do that better in the parasympathetic state normally. But I have a current neurological patient who's an adult chiropractor. I want to wake her up. So we do a lot of controlled hyperventilation. So honestly, it depends on the person. In my world, just something, right? Intentional breathing. Learn something. I do box breathing quite a bit. 5 in, 5, hold 5, out 5, out 5. Right? I think I said it right. I do a lot of the neuroscience. Who's heard of 4-8 breathing? That one is humongous. 2 minutes or 10 4-8 breaths multiple times a day has been shown to decrease anxiety center function, which means less anxiety. So different ratios. When in doubt, just do it. By the way, that's the hardest part. I used to try to teach diaphragmatic. I still do it. Diaphragmatic breaths. It's important. But if you don't even think about your breath, it's not even worth it. So if you know my patients, even my chiro patients, my first thing is listen to your breath right now. All of y'all try it. And if you can't hear it, do it until you can. And then feel your breath. And at the very least, focus on those two functions, both equally vital and important. Focus on your breath as if your life depends on it. And surely enough, the act of focus on breath will send blood flow to your brainstem, send blood flow to the focus centers because it takes focus. So when in doubt, just hear it. Listen to the breath, feel the breath, and then get into certain exercises later on. Cool? Yes, ma'am? Migraines in general are complicated. Um, they know it's either vasodilation or vasoconstriction in the brain. Most of the time, in my interpretation, is there's a chemical impact, something metabolically, chemically, cellularly. It makes sense, like an immune issue, inflammation, right? In the physical world, it's kind of straightforward. The body is throwing signals and signs and inflammation that this side of the hemisphere is being affected. So we will do our best to sometimes stimulate that side of the brain only, in body only, so contralateral to the side of the weakness. And a lot of times, a lot of regulation. When in doubt, regulate, which means in our world, midline, breathing, core. Because if we don't know the hemisphere difference or the body difference, you can do a lot of regulation, autonomic regulation, immunological regulation, emotional regulation. The brain can figure out, at least create a steady state by doing these regulation exercises, which I know I can elaborate later, but that will do a lot for even those. But migraines in general are tough. I gotta be honest. It's like similar to seizures, I think, sometimes. Yeah, and we can always meet afterwards too. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, have y'all, again, a good source for parents and just easy reading, made for parents, is Disconnected Kids by Robert Melillo. Disconnected Kids by Robert Melillo. He is the founder and creator of the Brain Balance Centers. Um, the idea is the left brain is the gas pedal, the right brain is the brake pedal. So if you have any physical activity, not to make this too simple, but sometimes it is, of an overactivity, hyperkinetic disorders, dystonias, tics, twitches, OCDs, these, I mean, most of these are observed pretty easily because it's too much of something. A lot of it can be sometimes a left hemisphere dominance in terms of output. It doesn't mean that's the issue. It could be a weaker right brain. But that's, yeah, so when it comes to tics and Tourette's and spontaneous movements and hyperactivities, if it's that simple, sometimes it is just a dominant left hemisphere or a hyperactive right hemisphere. That's the idea, yeah. It simply put, in the hemisphere, I call it, it's been called the hemispheristic model. So if it's as simple as just turning one brain up and one brain down, personally, it's not always that simple. A lot of times I'm doing a lot of midline to regulate, and then we'll find a weaker region and we'll just aim every now and then to that. But other times, it's crazy how accurate that hemispheristic model is. Connor is one of those guys in the beginning. We would do one hemisphere, and just putting a metronome, 60 beats per minute is a right brain brake pedal traditionally. 100 beats per minute is left brain. So I'll put 60 beats per minute metronome in the room without the kid even thinking about it, and sure enough, he just starts mellowing out. Sometimes it's that cool, but sometimes, you need more than that. I'm at 37 minutes, so I'm not sure if we got to keep on moving or I can do quite, yeah? Dude, I'm trained to do this for hours and hours, so don't keep me up here. Or keep me up here. Me personally, or how would you find, or so, honestly, again, if you want to try to find a chiropractic, we're all different, by the way. I'm a unique chiropractic neurologist, even for chiropractic neurologists are unique and rare enough, but I'm unique too, just because I was trained by a nurse practitioner and I was working with neurosurgeons, and I like the medical integration. I love it. Dr. Fox, I love that lady. I see you. You're amazing. And I love the camaraderie, but if you want a chiropractic neurologist, acnb.org can sometimes help you find an active or even inactive chiropractic neurologist. I mean, I would say just look up chiropractor with neurology, but nothing against it. There's a lot of chiropractors who practice neurology that is not as, clinical as we're trained to do, or I have been known to do Skype calls too, by the way. So like if I need to consult someone on vagal nerve or regulation exercises, I've consulted people in New York and California. So that's an option if you want to talk to me too. That helpful? I think that's it for now. Again, I have a little cabana area over there. I think I have a couple more slots open, but you can always just meet me and talk too. Cool? That's it. I'm done.